Well, we didn't quite expect the rain to really get going until tomorrow, but we'll see. Dark skies right above Schellenberger Field and Dr. Jack M. Tom's track, which serves as the setting for tonight's broadcast. Track and field finally back again on Dr. Jack M. Tom's track. It's the Dr. Jack M. Tom's Invitational, home meet number 1, hosted by Lynchburg, and I'm Sam Graham alongside Evan Gates. Day 1 of this 2-day meet coming at you tonight. Should be a really fun meet. You know, one of the biggest ones that's been hosted at Lynchburg to date. Of course, we have the Dennis Craddock coming up later in the season. Expect that one possibly to be even bigger. So, yeah, Evan, we got some distance events tonight and a full slate of stuff tomorrow. So, you know, I mean, how are we feeling? You know, first home meet, real true opener for a lot of people, you know, get their seasons going. Yeah, we got the steeple and the 10K up first today. So walk me through kind of what we're expecting to see here.
Well, Sam, it's an awesome way to open up the season. A lot of teams even opening up their outdoor seasons. And rain or shine, we're going to run these races. Obviously, the 10K and the steeple coming at you tonight. But like you said, it's early in the season. I think especially for a race like the steeplechase, more about getting technique down, not necessarily maybe in the perfect spot time-wise, but we know that getting that technique down, having a few confidence-building races is really going to be important. But as you said, we have only 3 women in the steeplechase, but it doesn't matter. It's competition nonetheless, and we're going to have an awesome race to get started here for this Jack M. Tom's Invitational.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that weather and that race that you mentioned, just been informed literally right pretty much after we came on the air that we are currently in a lightning delay. So we will have to wait a little bit longer than anticipated for that first race to officially get underway. But once we get a little bit closer to the end of that delay, hopefully we don't see too many more strikes in the vicinity that prolong that break, and we can get things rolling here in the next 30-ish minutes. We will step aside for now, though, and come back when we have a little bit more information as to start time. We'll start previewing some races. But until then, once again, Sam Graham alongside Evan Gates. We will see you in a little bit. All right, rain delay is over. That means we are just about to get set, get things underway in this first home meet of the season on campus of the University of Lynchburg. Once again, Sam Graham alongside Evan Gates, and we are opening up, Evan, with the women's 3K steeplechase, and you highlighted that a little bit before we went into our rain delay inspired break. Looks like coming out of that break, we're only going to get one of our three ladies entered in the race.
And at this point, obviously, coming out of a break, always difficult, too, for a coaching decision, really, to be able to figure out what's best for the athletes. We know that, obviously, a wet track, it might help the athletes a little bit in terms of the water jump, but still early in the season, sometimes not going to take chances. But to our knowledge, it looks like it will be Camino running this one out of West Virginia Tech. We'll keep you updated on that as gun goes off, and we are underway for the Jack M. Toms Invitational.
Yeah, I mean, touch on the rain, and that's certainly a big aspect when it comes to this steeplechase race. I mean, you're coming down a lot, again, a lot of those hurdles. It's an early season meet. You don't know how much hurdle work a lot of these athletes have gotten in. I know, each of us are distance athletes here on campus, so I know our guys, coming off the indoor season, just haven't gotten a ton of work getting over barriers. So,
and technique's really going to end up mattering too, because we know trying to get that down, especially in the steeplechase, when you're running alone, obviously it's a training session here in this one, but really just have to be able to start working on getting that form down early. We know that time might not be the biggest factor in this one, but being able to increase that confidence and just go forward in this outdoor season, knowing what you've done, I think it's very important. So today, so far, one athlete, it doesn't matter. She's out there and she's going to do her work as this race gets underway. And, for athletes, obviously everything's going to be different, but getting out there alone might just be able to clear your mind a little bit, get the little things done. Your coach is going to be out there. We see some of the other athletes, looks like the Lynchburg people are out and about, but it's just an exciting way to start this meet.
Yeah, and our one lady out there will be Haley Estes from DeSales. Quick little personal Lynchburg note, DeSales, the graduate degree spot for former Hornet Andrew Hawk, competed there last year with his one remaining year of eligibility as he pursues his DPT.
And another interesting note, too, obviously DeSales a D3 program, but throughout this meet, all sorts of schools from D1, D2, D3, and NAIA. And track meets like this early in the season, it's just awesome to see schools of different levels being able to compete against each other. We know that from a competition standpoint, that really enhances these races, and just getting experience, that's going to be important as the season goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you don't get obviously the competition aspect in this particular race with it essentially, kind of turning into a time trial here given the weather. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the coolest things about this sport, at the collegiate level is, you go D3. That doesn't limit you to only racing against D3 competition. You get to face the best of the best and, race against athletes at your level regardless of division. We had several of our distance guys competing at Raleigh Relays yesterday. That's a massive meet. That has great representation, again, from D1, D2, D3, NAIA. It kind of goes back to the old adage of if you've got it, you've got it,
Absolutely. And it's really just a luxury to be able to have that. We know that Lynchburg, being in the Old Dominion Athletic Conference, there are schools that are local, but having opportunities to travel, and we see even DeSales from up in Pennsylvania, I think it's great chances just to be able to go across the map. And as we open up the season, not only just getting ready physically, but having the mental game of being able to travel and getting ready for the postseason, even though it's a long time away.
Well, Estes so far through this one has looked very solid over the barriers. She comes into this one PR of 12:22. That came in last year's conference championship meet. So it's been a little bit, obviously, since she has competed in this race. Obviously not offered during the indoor season, so she'll be looking for a PR here. And so far running pretty smoothly out there on a wet track.
And like you mentioned, coming out of indoor, I think having a new event can be very difficult, just getting your mind right. But you have 35 hurdles in this race, and one way or another, you have to get over them. So being able to just build consistency, as we said, Estes looking really nice so far throughout this race, but it's going to be important just being able to keep going. And as we've said all along, if it's one person out there, you just have to keep doing it and getting in tune. So great camera coverage. If you have one person out there, go back, look at your form a little bit.
There's many runners that will do that. Use a little bit of film on themselves, try to work on form and whatnot, especially in a race like this, because it's not just your running form, but how you look going over the hurdles too. It begs the question of efficiency in a big way, and you see it there. You know, this water barrier, it can get tough the longer you're in this race, and you know, even some of the best of hurdlers, you know, when it comes to steeplechase, you get to that last lap or two and got some heavy legs. That barrier starts to look a whole lot higher. So,
and we're seeing two of the more difficult events in track. Obviously, all of them have their challenges, but in the steeplechase, not only do you have to be consistent, but getting over these hurdles a lot of times is really just a continuation of your running form, being able to speed it up and get over. And so when your legs get heavy, it is immensely difficult just being able to keep that rhythm going.
Yeah, you hear a lot of times too, you know, steeplechasers will talk about the importance of those few really hard steps as you approach the hurdle. That's got to, you know, mentally that's got to get challenging, you know, the longer that you go through a race. You're just telling yourself, I need, you know, 5 quick steps here. Man, I'm tired. You know, I've been running 2K of this 3K race. You know, it's easier said than done, but so far, I mean, that last water barrier a little bit shaky for Estes, but overall, she's looked really solid going over the hurdles, and you know, we'll see if the water plays any sort of impact as we go along through this. But you know, credit to the other athletes here competing. You know, whether it be from Lynchburg or other schools, kind of getting out here, accumulating on the track, and cheering. You know, it's one of these events with steeple. You really can't combine it with the men or the women. You know, sometimes you can do that if the fields are a little smaller, but obviously with the women's steeple height being a little shorter than the men's, you know, really no other option here for Estes than to solo run it. But good to see her getting some support from everybody in the venue.
And coming out of the rain delay, too, you have to wonder how much of a warm-up she's really been able to have. And obviously, steeplechase, it takes a lot of muscle interaction really just to be able to get out and hit that speed. So far, Estes just handling it like a pro in about 7 minutes into this race.
So she hits the line, 3 laps to go now. Yeah, it's 7:11. Again, mentioned that PR, 12:22. So working with about 5 minutes, 10 seconds to get through these final 3 laps. I'd say pretty good shot here for Estes to take a stab at a pretty big PR.
It's got to feel good, too, coming into this outdoor season. We know there's so much improvement from all the athletes, and really indoor track is so difficult to be able to showcase where your athletes are at if you're a coach, because the events are so different. So in steeplechase, a lot of the athletes that will come out will see these PRs early on, and even if they're still sharpening up their technique, you're comparing it to the last outdoor season almost a calendar year ago.
So there you have it, just a little over 8 minutes with 2K to go. That puts her right about 12-minute pace. Again, that would be about a 20-second PR. So we'll see what she has. I mean, you never know. Maybe there's a little bit of kick there at the end as well. Form still looks pretty good. Hurdles still look solid. So haven't seen a whole lot of breakdown in Estes's form so far. Again, so we'll have a little under an 800 to go when she gets back around to the start line. But so far, so good for race number 1 here.
Like you mentioned, this race, especially these last 2 laps, it can get long very quickly. So Estes staying true to form so far. Fortunate to be able to have this race at the time that we've had, as we see sort of behind the scoreboard there, some of the clouds that have ushered out the last 30 minutes or so. But these two events, awesome to be able to start off this meet.
Yeah, we were pretty lucky with that delay. We really didn't get a whole lot more in the way of lightning after that initial strike. So right a little after 6 o'clock, I'd say about 6:05, we got the announcement that we'd start this race at 6:25. So, yeah, I mean, get about an extra 20 minutes to try and loosen up, get ready to go. Not a ton, but enough to get in a quick little shakeout, some strides, and some drills, and try to attack this thing. So credit to Estes, just shaking off the circumstances and getting after it nonetheless.
See that water jump there becomes so difficult, but just being able to stand on your feet. And for fans who might not be familiar with steeplechase, the pit is actually deeper as you're closer to the hurdle, so it's so important to be able to get out on that jump. And especially just with your footing on top of the hurdle, we know how slick that can be. So far what Estes has been able to do, give credit to her, just maybe the things that you don't see in this race.
Talk about that technique over the hurdle as well. Common thing you'll hear among steeplechasers is, you want to finish the race with 1 foot wet. I'm not sure Estes is going to be able to, had much option in trying to do that today with these puddles all along the track. But she hits that last lap. Now 10:45 to go. And granted, it's not a full 400 that she has to go around. Now you factor in hurdles, it's probably pretty comparable to a 400 split. She will hit 11 minutes less, well under 300 meters to go. So should be a low 12-minute finish here for Haley Estes. That's a really solid start to her outdoor season.
Like you said, lots of the athletes out there cheering her on. That has to feel good just to be able to start this outdoor season and the way she has. And even though no one else in this race, she has looked confident, and she's really been able to just have consistency throughout this race.
So there's the water barrier, just one more hurdle to clear. A little over 100 meters to go, and she is at 11:39. I wouldn't rule out sub-12. She's got a little bit more explosiveness coming out of this last hurdle.
Final barrier cleared, and she knows it now.
Yeah, looking at that clock tick upwards, I'm not sure she's going to sneak in under 12 minutes, but it is going to be a big PR from Haley Estes, clocking right at 12:01 to make it 21 seconds off of her best to kick off this year's Dr. Jack M. Tom's Invitational. And this is one of those races where context is huge. I mean, you're doing this race solo. It's your first steeple of the outdoor season. Not to mention, it didn't really go as planned, when you're even going to run the race. You're expecting to run it at 5:30, and instead you're running it at 6:25. You have 20 minutes to warm up. So can't say enough about, just stepping up to the line, just still ready to attack it regardless of the circumstances.
Like you mentioned, partner, just to put on a time like that, but also to build the confidence leading into the rest of this outdoor season. We know that it can be a long season as we go into May and postseason and all of that, but throw that out the window, just focusing one day at a time. And what Estes did this evening was very impressive as we start this Invitational.
So with race 1 in the books, again, we'll have a rolling schedule tonight, so the men's DMR will come up soon as they've got these hurdles ready to go. See the men on the other side of the track here in a moment already gathering, and big different story here for this particular race. By no means a solo effort for these gentlemen, a large contingent traveling over from Blacksburg, Virginia Tech Running Club, well represented in both the steeplechase and the 10K. Several, as you mentioned earlier, going to attempt what it would, I don't even know if you would say arguably, what would have to be the toughest double in track. The steeplechase and the 10K, one after the other. I'm not sure if one of them is, the intent is to be a workout, but it's not just the Virginia Tech guys either. Drew Tybalt also slated to compete in both races, and again, he's the facility record holder in the steeplechase, so really looking forward to watch the 2018 Grove City graduate compete in this race.
We know the talent that's going to be showcased in this race, but like you said, that double, that's something almost unheard of, just because you use, obviously in the 10K, especially having such a long race and then 3K steeple, the muscles that you're using in that race, just expending that much energy, it'll be very impressive to see. Like you said, sometimes coaches will throw them in for a workout or maybe a little less effort in one or the other, but it'll be exciting to watch that as we enter this race.
Again, as we wait for the start here, Drew Tybalt probably would be the safe favorite going into this one, but we have heard that he's been training for triathlons over right across the street at Liberty University. So we'll see how good of a shape he is when it comes to just running. Obviously, you still have to be in impeccable shape to compete in triathlons at a high level. But again, that's more of a well-rounded approach. You're trying to focus on three athletic disciplines. So see how he looks here on the track, and not just that, a wet track.
And you wonder how intentional he's been able to be just with steeple training, because like we've talked about, such a different race from the other ones around the oval.
Yeah, and looking past Tybalt, there's a few other guys in this field that you certainly want to keep your eye on. One would be Hunter Probert. He's a junior out of Mount Union, coming off a fourth-place finish in the 1K at the OAC Champs on the indoor oval. Also does hold an 8:53 PR in the 3K. This is his first ever steeplechase, but it'll be really interesting to see how he attacks these hurdles and what he can do in terms of translating that open 3K into the steeplechase.
It's the same distance. You just add all the hurdles around the track, and it makes it a very different race in the end, but just a great start as we've seen the athletes get out, and a lot of times you'll see the pace slowed down a bit, no one really wanting to make a move, but so far it looks like it's spread out a decent bit, so these first few laps really dictate how the race unwinds.
Yeah, and especially on a wet track, getting over those first couple hurdles, you want to have some space to work with. You don't want to be 4 wide, packed in tight like you would in virtually any other race. You're okay maybe letting the guy next to me, he looks like he's chomping at the bit. Let's let him go right now. We got a long race, a lot of hurdles to jump over. Nobody's winning this race in the first lap or two, so biggest thing you don't want is to take a tumble going over the first water barrier or anything like that. So not too uncommon to see these steeplechases string out, maybe 1 or 2 guys up front like we have right now, but see these guys just kind of form a train, one behind the other.
And the key to distance events like that, it spreads out early. You really just can't become complacent, because we know the race can get late very early, if that makes sense, and just being able to have control with that pace, so even if you're slowing down, you're still monitoring where you need to be. We know that there are normally enough coaches around the track to really keep that in check.
So early on, it looked for a moment there like we might have 3 gentlemen start to separate themselves from the field. That's Pekulis of the Virginia Tech Running Club in the lead, with Drew Tybalt hanging right off of his shoulder, just kind of feeling this race out in the early going. Checks his watch, looks very comfortable, and he will now go around Yakulis to take the lead. So Tybalt didn't like something he saw with the pace there, decides he will set his own pace. And you can just see it. He opens that stride up, just feels out those first couple laps, and now he has decided, let's make this race kind of what I want it to be. And now we do see those top 3 start to string out with Tybalt, Yakulis. I believe that is Hunter Probert in third.
You mentioned it with Tybalt the facility record for the steeplechase, so you know he's comfortable with getting out, but with these conditions, the question is how long does he hold it? See those few short steps that we've talked about, and with Tybalt, I think the pace just gets up so quick when you're not seeing the hurdles, like for example on this straight, that it really just makes that jump a little more comfortable.
Yeah, Tybalt looking really, really good right now. Very comfortable here opening up a lead. Again, letting Yakulis do a little bit of the work through those first couple of laps.
Tight battle for second forming right now. Again, it's still early, but something to keep your eye on as this race unfolds.
Again, our top 3 seeds, 1, 2, 3 right now. Again, that is Probert hanging right off of Yakulis. That's good to see from Probert. Mentioned this is his first steeple. We have a few guys in the field making their first crack. One of the most difficult events on the track. Probert not really showing any signs of hesitancy. Looks pretty confident out there.
And for the first steeple, the question really becomes, can you handle it when things get difficult? Because we know these first few laps, you're fit enough to get over the hurdles, your mind's in the right spot, but being able to be consistent enough to where the second half of the race you can either keep it somewhat close or start to clip down a little bit.
Yeah, and credit to numbers 2 and 3, Yakulis particularly. They're not letting Tybalt run away with this thing. You know, he built up this lead. It really hasn't grown over the last lap or so. And Tybalt does still look comfortable running out in the lead, but Yakulis has managed to stop the bleeding a little bit, keep this thing within reach, not let this race get away. Now Probert has gone around him, so the first timer looking to take on the facility record holder. He's got him in his sights.
You wonder, too, for Probert, if he knows just how impressive Tybalt has been, and sometimes maybe a little bit easier if you don't know the people in the field. You just go off and trust your fitness, but for a first-timer, he has really looked impressive.
So again, Tybalt, Probert, Yakulis, and they're in fourth. Samuel Haynes out of Concord. Again, he is the 4th seed, so Rock Chalk up top. Samuel Haynes, another guy. I mean, we talked about Probert holding that 8:53 3K PR. Haynes comes into this one an 8:52 3K runner. So right about the same. You know, it really comes down to how do they, approach these hurdles? Where are they at, approaching this outdoor season? But Haynes, kind of a do-it-all guy for Concord. He also throws javelin.
How about that? Typically a little bit more common maybe for sprinters to get in on the field action. Obviously with distance events, we know that it takes so much out of you just to go out and compete, but javelin, one of those events, so unique, so exciting to watch.
Now with 2 laps to go, I dare say, Evan, we may get a pretty good race up front on our hands. Probert has not let Tybalt get away, and we'll see what each of these gentlemen have in terms of a kick now with less than 800 meters to go. But I'd venture to say Probert has looked better virtually every single time he has come around past us. His stride looks a little bit more natural. He's opened things up a little bit. And again, Tybalt cannot shake him. Only about, I'd say, maybe a 20-meter gap between the two of them. So we will see what Probert has now with just over 600 meters to go.
And as a competitor, that's really what you have to do is just keep that first place athlete close enough and fish him in. But this water jump could really dictate things, if not now, at least on that last lap. But still closing the gap a little bit as we come in about 500 left.
Probert quickens his stride. Tybalt, and again, Probert here momentarily facing their first lap traffic since early in the race. Probert has really cut into this lead, and Tybalt starting to tighten up just a tad. Again, you mentioned that competitive spirit. We'll see what we get from Tybalt through this final lap, but Probert, the closest he has been. Just a few hurdles to go. For Probert, this is going to be a really, really impressive opener. Not going to get under 9 minutes, but certainly has a great shot at getting under 9:30.
And with this field, it looks like he's had a great chance to go out there and do that. You know, sometimes as we even look at the last race, it can be so tough to go out there and solo it, but it's going to come down to this last 200 meters for this one.
So here we go, our top seed and our third seed. Again, mentioned it, the facility record holder and the first timer. First timer giving chase. And Tybalt holding on to this lead. Good water jump there to close. Good solid one from Probert as well, but the gap may be too wide. Looks like Tybalt's experience is going to hold off. Probert down the home stretch here through the last hurdle. These two gentlemen not quite going to get under 9:30. Should both finish just under 9:40, or it will be 9:40 flat for Probert. 9:38 for Drew Tybalt, and he will take the lead. And rounding out our top three will be Sam Yakulis from the Virginia Tech Running Club. He also will get under 10 minutes.
You could sense it, too, that Tybalt, when he started to pick up, he could probably hear those footsteps coming behind him, but impressive job from really the entire field so far. But that top three, just being able to have a gap a little early and have that sense of direction just to be able to keep going. So by no means was it easy conditions or the optimal spot for a race that you would imagine, but they did not make it look too difficult.
So we got one more runner on the track, and then we will get set for the women's 10K. And we'll see how many of those guys entered in the men's 10K do, in fact, double back to compete. We'll run you through that list of men. That is Drew Tybalt, Jonathan Gerlich of Virginia Tech, and again, Sam Yakulis, who just finished third in that steeple. All three of those men entered in a grueling double.
Maybe a situation of just trying to know how much you bit off before you chew it, and it's going to be an interesting decision from the coaches, but see a few of these Tech Running Club athletes still waltzing around a little bit, so you have to think how much energy do they have left. But as we know, the 10K, if it doesn't hurt physically, it's going to certainly take you out mentally, so we'll have to keep an eye on that decision.
It's a good job from our hurdle crew, their first test of the weekend, obviously coming here and removing the steeples. Very efficient work, so shout out to the University of Lynchburg hurdle crew. Does a great job at every home meet. Very prompt.
Have to keep things light. A meet like this, we know the rain came in. Just making things exciting as we head into this 10K. You have to think, too, first home meet of the season, outdoor just opening up. You really just love to have this atmosphere, as we know you can never take a weekend for granted in outdoor. So this weekend just going to be an exciting opener, and even beyond the performance list, you know that it's just going to be a great experience as we head forward.
We'll let these ladies get going here in a minute, and then break down some of our races coming up tomorrow, what to look for, what to get excited about. We have perfect attendance for this second women's race of the day and of the meet. 4 for 4.
We'll go ahead and start introducing some of these ladies for the 10K. It's Belle Weichert of Shippensburg, so far 40-16 10K PR. Her last race was a 5K in the end of February at 1924. It's going to be Megan Westerman out of Randolph, 45:01 10K PR. And once more, she ran at the end of February in a 5K at 2017. Abby Norton, third from the inside, coming out of the Virginia Tech Running Club. We know a lot of these club athletes we won't have as many times to share with you, but we'll have to see how her performance shapes out. And then Julie Barrett of DeSales. Very interesting story here. She's actually ran everything essentially from the 200 to the 10K today, which not many athletes can say, so an impressive start. And to give you a bit of comparison, she has a 12:37 3K PR, so keep an eye on her. But exciting start. We know it's a longer race, but it's going to be a treat for us here on LHSN.
"25 laps around the big oval for the 10K. Again, talk about Barrett. See if maybe we can get her entered in the 100-meter dash tomorrow, as long as she's not too tired out from this 10K. No, that can be a really tough one on the body, one of the hardest to recover for obvious reasons.
Seen it become more common to almost just have the 10K at a meet, and regardless of if it's 2 days or not, we know it's early in the season. Coaches might not want their athletes to go out there and have that much on their bodies this early, but
so quickly we have spread out here. It is Belle Weichert, our top overall seed, out to the early lead. Megan Westerman out of Randolph, hanging just a few strides behind.
see the pace very different at the start. We know it's with the 10K, such an interesting event because a lot of times, even if there is a pack, there can be such a big pace difference. We know that there are athletes that might have a better start and others who are going to wait, sit, and kick. And so as this one shapes out, we just know that there is more of maybe a coaching presence in a 10K and a longer event on the distance side.
Running confidently here early is Weichert. She runs away from Megan Westerman here early on in lap number 2. But again, like we said in that steeplechase, you aren't doing a whole lot through those first couple of laps rather than feeling things out. So again, Evan, we mentioned, pair of distance events here tonight, but we've got the full slate all day tomorrow. Again, all that coverage will be brought to you right here on LHSN. I'll be competing early on in the 1500, but Evan, you'll be obviously around up here in the press box, ready to continue our coverage of what should be a really, really fun second day. Again, events through pretty much every discipline: relays, sprints, throws, jumps, distance, you name it. Especially on the distance side, some really, really good fields. Really from the top down. It'll be the 1500. That'll be the first one on the distance side tomorrow.
Always just with fields like this, and to have it this early in the season has just got to be a thrill for coaches to have athletes getting that experience, knowing what the races are going to feel like, because even if you're a junior or a senior, just really getting the nuts and bolts kinked early on is going to be impressive for these athletes. We know that Lynchburg really just throwing in a lot of distance athletes. So, as you said, every event on the schedule, it's going to be a fun one. See how it folds out.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about that 1500, even just looking through the, that first heat. Ben Nagel from Virginia Tech, Lynchburg's own Sam Laneza just opened up his season in the 1500 yesterday, actually, running 349, his 5th time under 350. Multi-time All-American in that event. Frank Sorba threw down a nasty mile in the indoor season. A couple other names through there. Marko Kovacevic, another Lynchburg guy. Jeremiah Mussman, again, right across the street from Liberty. Chasen Hunt, Corbin Green, a couple more Lynchburg names to throw in there at you, and that'll get things going on the distance side. Should be a whole lot of fun.
And I think in events like that, what separates good from great athletes is just being able to go across any event to show up and really get the work done. And we know, as you said up front with the All-Americans, Waneza and Sorba, just they're so good at, with whatever event it is, changing that pace, training for it, because we know that a lot of times coaches will throw athletes out there training for one specific event, but no, they have to be ready for them all. So it'll be exciting to see that 1500. We know it's going to be a quick one.
Yeah, again, you look through that heat, and like we've talked about a couple times already, you look through, all right, you got Virginia Tech, Liberty, there's your D1, Shippensburg, there's your D2, and of course Lynchburg, there's your D3. Wide variety of competition at this meet all weekend long. Meanwhile, on the track in this 10K, it is still Bell Weichert, who's now opened up about a 100-meter gap on second. See down there on the field, Connor McCroy tossing around the pigskin with a couple of his teammates. McCroy, very solid steepler here at Lynchburg, holds the school record.
You have to wonder how tough it was for him to sit and watch the steeple. Maybe a little bit different, but we know with the shape he's in and just really from this entire team what they've been able to accomplish coming out of first outdoor meet at home. You just got to go and send it, and we know that Coach Jake Reed, the entire staff at Lynchburg, just excited for this one to get underway from a Hornets perspective tomorrow morning.
Weichert here running comfortably in the lead, just about to complete her 5th lap. She will double back and attack the 5K tomorrow. Talk about tough doubles. That you do get a night of sleep in between, but that will be no small task.
And as we've said, just with different fields, no two races are going to feel the same. So coming out here in a 10K, we've seen Weichert really running by herself at this point. But to go into a 5K tomorrow and maybe have that level of competition where you're running with 6 or 7 people in that group, it's just you have to be ready.
So there, Megan Westerman running in second right now. Our top 2 athletes pretty strung out, just over 9 minutes into this grind of a race. Do have a pair running third and fourth. That's Abby Norton and Julie Barrett.
Sometimes, too, a little bit more difficult to find that pace in the 10K just because there's so much change. We know how long this event can be. As you even see if you watch marathons or half marathons, we know you're feeling so many different things as a distance runner as the race goes on. So credit to these athletes just getting out after the rain. As we've talked about, I'm sure warm-ups still impacting this one a little bit, just trying to stay loose throughout the break. But as we head about 10 minutes into this 10K, things spreading out early.
Well, as this one rounds into form, run you through some of the results from the javelin earlier today. First, on the men's side, Ethan Milan out of Liberty took the narrow lead. First through third, all pretty close. Milan with a throw of 57.71 meters on his penultimate toss. And Brady Diller, teammate out of Liberty, that's who he held off for second. Diller just under 57 meters, going 56.98. And then Austin Long, representing Shippensburg, 56.84, rounds out the metaphorical medal stand there. On the women's side, Abby Riesener, again out of Shippensburg, she took the win in 42.04. And she was followed by Patasha Bryan and Meredith Engel, both out of Liberty, but slightly easier win there for Riesener than on the men's side. She wins by close to 4 meters. Tossed that 42-meter throw on her third attempt. Riesener, the only athlete to clear 40 meters, and she did so twice. Did it consecutively. Throws 3 and 4, both clearing that barrier. And then in the realm of field, we also have the women's hammer throw coming up a little later this evening. Should have those results before this 10K is all said and done.
The beauty of these meets, especially in outdoor, is just there's so much variety. Always fun seeing the field events come in, and like we said, we'll try to keep you as updated as possible. Action going on multiple locations across campus. We know Moonfield used for shot and throws, but right here, Jack M. Tom's track. Name of the meet as well, Jack M. Tom's Invitational. The men's 10K to follow this one. Weichert still a commanding lead early on. If you've seen on the infield as the camera cuts a little bit, just almost a field day out there. Some of the athletes staying loose. As we said, majority of the meets events coming to tomorrow, but nice way to enjoy Friday evening after the rain.
Weichert still running confidently here in the lead. Again, this has turned into a solo effort for her. 16 laps remaining. Starting to get close to that midway point. We'll get you that 5K split as we come around there. Of course, that'll be on the opposite side of the track over at the 200-meter mark. You mentioned throws going on down there at Moon Field. Weather actually did a little bit of a solid. Lynchburg's softball team recently ranked in the national top 25 after a road upset of number 1 Salisbury. Also ended a nearly 60-game home winning streak that the Seagulls held going into that one. They were scheduled to have Code Red game tomorrow. Would have conflicted with this meet, but due to weather, that got pushed back a day. So no conflict down there on Moon Field now, but again, their contest with Virginia Wesleyan should be a fantastic one. Again, catch that as well right here on LHSN. Pair of nationally ranked teams will throw down later this weekend.
Lots of great ODAC competition across all sports. We know the spring things start to really unwind, as we know baseball, softball, lacrosse all going around, and then here in track and field. But at this point, with the Lynchburg programs finding a lot of success in their spring season, so be an exciting thing to keep your eye on. Can be so difficult too trying to forecast Virginia weather at this time of the year. We've seen 20s, we've seen 80s within the same month. You really never know what you're going to get. But tomorrow, as of now, looks like we might have a few showers early in the morning. But temperatures get up in the high 70s, so by the afternoon we should have some nice weather here down by the track. Again, just a prediction, but better than nothing at this point, as we know things can change very quickly.
Well, of course, if you step off campus here, there's plenty of action going around, as there always is, in the sporting world as a whole. Of course, got March Madness on both the men's and women's sides really heating up now. I mean, how about some of that action last night, Evan? Florida Atlantic, 9 seed, keeps their, I don't even know if you would call it a magical run. They've been competitive all season. Now, unless Houston's able to beat Miami later today, Florida Atlantic, the most wins in all of Division I currently at 34. And if Houston loses, the Owls will clinch that title, if not a national title or a Final Four. So what a year there for Dusty May's squad. Of course, had Gonzaga once again knocking off UCLA on a last-second shot.
How about that second half comeback, too?
Yeah, 13 points. It was Jalen Suggs just a couple years ago, back in 2021 in the Final Four. Sent the Zags to the national title. And last night, did it again.
One game as well to keep your eye on. Princeton, the 15 seed, playing against Creighton tonight. And if you followed any news in the sporting world or ESPN, Princeton drawing similarities to St. Peter's last year and a chance to get to the Elite Eight, follow the exact same storyline. So that one at 9 Eastern tonight, that'll be a really fun one. As you said, March, maybe one of the best sporting months, just so much going on, and to be able to have track and field coming back as well, it's just a very exciting time of year.
I mean, you can flip on the TV at virtually any time of day. I was eating lunch earlier today. Tennis was on. Tournament going on over in Hilton Head Island. Beautiful, beautiful place. And yeah, in basketball, that takes you pretty much from noon all the way until you go to bed. You mentioned, Princeton running up against Creighton, the Blue Jays there. And speaking of Blue Jays, one of Lynchburg's own, Grayson Thurman, recently signed into the Blue Jays organization. Big shout out to him, former pitcher for the Hornets.
He had some nasty stuff down on the diamond, but being able to go down to Florida for single A ball and really for any collegiate athlete from the D3 level to be able to go play professional ball, whichever sport. It's just such a fun story to follow, and we know with Thurman's work ethic, he's going to be able to fit in well down there. So we'll have to keep you updated as the months go by. We know baseball season's on the professional level starting to come back.
Meanwhile, down on the track, told you we'd get you that 5K split for Weichert. That was right around 1935. So she's got 12 and a half laps to go, our leader here. And got a really good shot here, breaking 40. That'd be a big PR for her. And opening up the season with a sub-40 performance. It's a really good way to start things off.
Be interesting, too, to see what the splits end up looking like between the first half and the second. We know in the 10K, obviously it's very difficult to have that negative split. Maybe you get out a little quick, but Weichert looking comfortable, and definitely a great sign if you're a coach from Shippensburg just to see this early on. Just getting athletes out there, maybe exposing them to how it's going to feel when it starts to get tough.
See there, Abby Norton from Virginia Tech.
When things spread out like this, obviously, all four of these ladies really running by themselves, so you just have to key in on the splits. And speaking of 10K training, we know that obviously the longest event and on the track, but it doesn't require just endurance training. There's so much more that goes into it that maybe meets the eye. We know as well some speed thrown in there, just trying to get turnover down, and as we'll see in maybe some of those events like the 15 tomorrow that speeds things up a little bit. The little things become so important, especially up front. So even early in the season, important just to at least have that in your mind if you're an athlete, because you're not expecting perfection in late March, but you're hoping to at least have some confidence, be able to really start ramping things up later in the season.
Yeah, I mean, building off that, you talk about the mental aspect of a race like this. Just gets very, very difficult. Probably goes without saying. 25 laps around the big oval.
As always, shout out to the LHSN crew getting us the camera angles today. We'll be hard at work again tomorrow as we broadcast the remainder of this meet, but especially in the spring, as we mentioned, lots of sporting events going on, so having people to come out and help and contribute, always a great sight to see.
Evan, we talked a little bit about some of those Virginia Tech guys we had listed to potentially double back in this 10K. It does look like we have a couple of them starting to warm up here in the infield. Maybe not even warm up, but just stay loose. Try and recover a little bit coming off of that 3K steeple effort.
Maybe a little bit easier, too, in a smaller meet, you could say. As we know, in this evening, not too many events, so just being able to stay loose, have some fun. We know that obviously the 10K can be an extremely difficult event, but staying loose, keeping the mental right, those can be big when things get tough, just knowing you can handle it, because a lot of the physical fitness-wise, the physicality of it's really going to be determined in training. And so just being able to come out and execute, I think, is important in a meet like this.
Yeah, and you talk about that mental aspect when your legs are already tired, not just from running a 3K, but from running it over barriers. Can't even imagine wrapping your head around getting after it again. Just, I mean, what, that men's steeple wrapping up shortly before 7. I have to imagine probably have about 20 minutes before the men's 10K will get underway. So make that about 7:40. Not a big window really for any races, but certainly not for two as taxing as those.
Absolutely, and by the end of the day, if that double does happen, that's about 8 miles on the track. Add whatever warm-up and cool down these athletes have. That's no easy task.
Suffice it to say, those gentlemen would think they can feel all right not having a long run this week. I think they will take care of that and then some.
Another point that maybe as a fan you don't pay too much attention to, but the schedule during outdoor. Obviously you have meets on different days of the week, but a lot of those meets really dictate the entire rest of the week, just trying to get in long runs if you're a distance athlete. When are you going to have the workouts is always an interesting question, and so coaches really have their plates full just trying to figure out what's best for each athlete. And so far, as we know at Lynchburg, Coach Jake Reed, Coach Spreck, the entire crew just doing a phenomenal job of individualizing each event. But we know come postseason, those experiences really add up, and they'll show maybe with PRs or fast times. You just have to wait around and know that that work early in the season is going to pay off.
Yeah, you talk about getting workouts in. You also try to pick out those meets or those opportunities where maybe you get in a workout within a meet, because it's almost vital at times when you do have competitions every single weekend. That's not to say everybody is competing every weekend, but those opportunities are more than numerous. So, maybe that's what this is for some of these guys attempting to double back in that 10K is, you see a lot, you get post-race workouts, things like that. Maybe coming back in that 10K is just an opportunity to get in, another quality effort coming off of the steeple. Maybe not its full, not fully a race, but instead just a chance to really make for a quality day.
Absolutely, and just being on the track for that mileage, because we know it's not the same as being out on the roads or the trails. So you talk about just preparing for those meets. One athlete that might actually be working out during this 10K, Ronan Creamer for Lynchburg, looks to be suiting up on the infield. We'll have to keep an eye on that as the men continue their warm-ups.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Evan, but I know from a personal standpoint, if I was approached with picking between a post-race workout and doubling back in the 10K, I think I would have to opt for the more traditional workout. But nothing else. See these athletes, they're going to have a pretty solid view. Not sure how much they will pay attention to it while they're running, but for our spectators particularly, always beautiful backdrop here. You know, we had that rain earlier, a lot of clouds. Still pretty cloudy skies here, but get some really great sunsets as that sun does dip down behind the new Westover dorms and overlooks Schellenberger Field. Just, you know, Coach Kadelka frequently calls it one of the best scenes for, you know, track, lacrosse, soccer, field hockey, you name it, across Division III. You know, it's kind of rare that a school actually legitimately gets the opportunity to put its main competing field in the direct center of campus, but that's really what we have here at Lynchburg. Creates for a pretty cool atmosphere every time out.
As we know here at Lynchburg, too, with the student section, a lot of times you see these soccer or lacrosse games going on in the middle of the field. You'll see students lining the track to watch those athletes compete. So as an athlete on the field, you almost feel like really the fan base is on top of you. Really helps the Hornets out.
Now as Belle Weichert approaches start line for the 20th time, she can start to see the end, start to think about finishing this race off. She will hit it with 2K remaining, 31:40 on the clock. Again, her PR right around 40 minutes. She'll have, I would wager, a pretty good shot at a massive PR today. Again, still running really confident. Still looks really good out there in the lead. Hasn't shied away when this turned into a solo effort. Almost looking like a metronome out there every time she runs by us. Really can't even tell a difference from the last time around.
And when competition is in the race, too, if you're in a group, maybe that adds to a little bit of the strategy coming in, trying to fake it a little bit. But so far, she has not had to do that, just staying consistent, not trying to do too much early. We know when she comes around for this lap, it'll be about a mile left. So really just being able to know in the back of your head you're close to the finish, but also not letting go of your pace. Something that's crucial when you get in the postseason.
So we will see what Weichert has left in the tank. Now with a mile to go, roughly just under. 33:18 with 1,600 remaining. Her PR 40:16. That's nearly 7 minutes away. So we will see if she can hold on to the pace she's established. Have no reason to believe that she won't from what we've seen so far. This looks to be a really, really solid opener for the lady from Shippensburg.
So these laps start clipping down, get in the back of your head how much you want it. And, you know, for late March to be able to get a PR, really start your season off on the right foot, that has to feel good.
Now here is Weichert coming down the home stretch for just a couple more times. She will have to do this. 2 laps remaining at the start line, and just over 36:30, make it 36:35. You can hear potentially our public address announcer tonight, Daniel Cutright, announced 325 is what will be needed over the last 800 meters to break the 40-minute barrier. It's a big one on the women's side.
Clipping down a little bit from 7 flat pace to get that. These are the 2 laps where you start to believe a little bit. If you're still in it, you see that 40-minute barrier, be able to really pick it up on that last lap, but we'll have to see how much Weichert has left.
Yeah, she has opened up her stride a bit. Looks really smooth here, especially granted this is a 10K. This late into the race really has not shown any let up. Mentioned word metronome earlier. Just very consistent race here from Weichert. It's a bell lap for Weichert, 38:10 on the clock. 1 lap to go. And Evan, I think it's a pretty safe bet to say she gets under 40 minutes in this race. Question now is just how far under? It's 39:45 in the equation.
It's going to be a statement on the first night of this meet. As we said, we knew her PR was close with 40:16, but she's looking to demolish that one as she runs down the backstretch. Have to think she feels it now.
So 39:45 certainly in reach. Just now at 39 minutes, with about 150 meters to go, is 39:30 in the equation. I'm not sure about quite that pass, but I think she may be closer to that than even 39:45. Urged on by a few of her teammates down this home stretch for the final time. It won't be 39:30. But it is going to be a massive PR to open up the 2023 outdoor season for Weichert, as she will cross in 39:38. Quick math says that is a 38-second PR for Weichert. No rust shown on that effort.
Great work within that last mile as well, because a lot of times we know the 10K being 6 miles, you want to force it early. She really just let that race develop, and when time mattered, she made sure to deliver.
So now our attention will turn to Megan Westerman from Randolph. Still running in second. She has commanded that spot from the gun.
So far, looking really steady. We know that early part of this race can be difficult, but it will also, it looks like it's shaping to be a huge PR for her as well. 45:01 is the mark right now. We'll have a jump. Just with a race this spread out, a lot of times it can be difficult to make things happen.
1 lap to go for Westerman, 41:05 at the line.
We talk about time that passes by between outdoor seasons. We know 10K exclusive to outdoor track, and see jumps like this. but it doesn't erase just how impressive it is to keep delivering.
Exclusive to outdoor, thank goodness. Be a 50-lap race on the indoor track. That's a lot to wrap your mind around, and then some.
25 is long enough for that 5K, and can't imagine running the 10K there, but it's also interesting to think about. A lot of these 10K athletes running 5K in indoor, the equivalent 25 laps, and maybe you're a little prepared for this, but still a different animal. As Westerman rounds that corner, it looks like it's going to be 200 left. From Randolph College, right down the street from Lynchburg.
So here comes Westerman down the stretch. She will be our second finisher. It's going to be just a hair over 42 and a half minutes. Get the official here, 42:40 for Westerman out of Randolph.
Another time to write down, as we said, 45:01 was the previous PR. So top two finishers and two PRs to finish with. Great start to this 10K. As we know, the men will be running next. Still two competitors out there for the women.
And credit to Westerman, you know, that big of a PR coming right out of the gate just speaks volumes to the work. Imagine she must have put in, again, from last year to this. Don't see those types of PRs every day, even in an event this long.
Doing it on her own as well. You just wonder for the rest of this season what she can continue to produce, but if you're a coach, you have to like your starting point.
And again, you know, as one would assume, that's one of those events you only get so many cracks at, you know, bites at the apple just because of how grueling it is on the body, on the mind as well. So it just drives home the fact that you got to make sure you make every single one count. And I'd argue for Weichert and Westerman, they both certainly did that today. Came out and did what they set out to do. For Westerman, just a massive PR. And for Weichert, her first time under 40 minutes. We have our third finisher now.
Norton finishing 44:15 out of Virginia Tech Running Club, so also a nice result. As we said, all four of these ladies essentially running this race alone, and to be able to produce results like this has been a solid endeavor as we start this 10K.
So one more athlete out on the track. That is Julie Barrett from DeSales.
If you remember earlier, we mentioned she essentially has covered every event around the oval, even down to 200 on record. So you have to wonder for tomorrow what's on her schedule. So we know the majority of the meet will take place here on LHSN.
It'll be one more lap here for Julie Barrett. She crosses 46:32. And directly following be our final event of this evening. That'll be the men's 10K. You mentioned earlier, Evan, saw Ronan Creamer warming up, continues to warm up, has thrown on a jersey and a number as well. Ronan, another Lynchburg athlete, he's coming off of a little minor injury, just sidelined him a little bit, mainly just took him out of some workouts, still been able to continue to run and get in some work, so probably not a true race effort here, but we'll see. Be very interesting to see if he finishes this race and, maybe throws down a mark early on in the season.
You have to wonder if he woke up this morning knowing he was going to compete in this race. Or as you said, if he's even truly competing. We know a lot of athletes will get out there, maybe not finish it, but still get a solid effort in, speed up the pace a little bit. As we said, it's going to be a larger field for the men compared to this women's race, so to be able to get out there and put marks down early in the season has to feel good, so we'll keep an eye on that. Ronan Creamer representing the University of Lynchburg.
It'll be our first Lynchburg athlete competing on the track. Did have a few over by Moonfield earlier today. And the throws. Now we will get the finish here from Barrett. It's going to be right around 48 and a half, a hair under. 48:26 will be the final, and that will officially conclude our women's version of the 10K. And immediately there go the men stepping on. Again, rolling schedule here tonight on night one of the Jack M. Toms Invitational. And as you said, much larger field here on the men's side.
Touched on it a little bit at the beginning of the women's race, but it'll be interesting to see how this race really shapes out first couple of laps. We know a lot of times they'll end up being a pack, but lots of different schools represented as well, and so you wonder how much cooperation there might be. We know sometimes throwing a pack intending to pace with each other.
Looks like we do have a few absences, but still really good sized field. Plenty of Virginia Tech Running Club representation as we predicted earlier. Do not spot Drew Tybalt out there, so doesn't look like he will attempt to come back. But again, Ronan Creamer will be out there, not officially entered in this race. They got him a number. Yeah, that's one of the perks when you're running the meet. Get a last-minute addition there.
Doesn't matter how you're out there. If Kramer's got a number, he's out there running the first turn. You just feel that adrenaline coming. You got to take advantage of every chance you get.
This is technically the first 10K that Ronan has ever run. And again, we'll see if he goes the distance here. But like you said, gets out to kick this one off. And pretty quickly, see this one string out a little bit.
Well, and you have to think, too, especially getting into the mix. Even if this one isn't for a time, it's just about learning, because every time you step on the track for a new meet, you're venturing to learn something just in terms of how you get out, how you pace it, how aggressive you might be. As very similar to the women's race first lap. Single file line that starts this one out.
And certainly in this event, there can be a lot to be learned from quote-unquote practice run. Whether you finish or not. A lot of times it can be a little bit of a shock just starting out the 10K. You might, approach it in one meet and the beginning feels really relaxed. It feels really comfortable. You feel great. And the next time you run it, you might go in thinking that first mile or so might feel a little bit like a tempo effort, and you're 2 laps in and you freak out a little bit because it's a lot harder than that.
It's a roll of the dice every single time.
It certainly is. Really depends on the day. So just, getting a little bit of experience under your belt and understanding that it's not always how you feel that dictates how you run. Yeah, that's something that's hard to tell yourself in the 10K. But as with any other race, it does ultimately hold true, especially with the more experience you're able to glean.
Sam, you and I have talked as well. It's an interesting point just to see strategy as you start at 10K, but a lot of times getting out quicker might be of benefit just because if you're running slower and you're settling, it's such a difficult race to pick up having that much distance to cover. As we know, let's say you pick up halfway through, well, you still have 3 miles to run. So the leaders up front setting the pace and just trying to hold it as long as you can.
Got a group of mainly 6 out in that lead pack.
See Creamer there having a little bit of fun. Always helps to have your teammates out there as well. At a home meet, don't have to worry about travel as much, just get to stay loose.
These home meets, a fan favorite, especially amongst the team itself. How about long line of Virginia Tech here. 5 of our top 6. All Virginia Tech athletes.
Enter Sandman in the background. Got to think the Hokies like that one. So we said 10K, a long race. You got to find ways, keep your brain engaged, have a little bit of fun.
It's a good catch there on the musical choice. Very, very nice touch from up here in the press box. Nice tip of the hat to the Hokie Club athletes down there commanding this top pack.
I was mistaken earlier when I mentioned maybe you're not packing as much, but Virginia Tech has really been able to do that. And although there might not be in the exact bunch, I mean, that's about as good as it's going to get in a 10K, just being able to stay close, go off what the leader throws you, and sometimes you'll see especially as well a little bit of movement just to shake things up. Maybe second or the third guy will take the lead for a lap and hold it, but we'll keep an eye on that. I believe it's Gorlick at front.
And these guys not necessarily attacking this one timidly by any means. They come through the mile leaders right about 5:07, 5:08. And that's the dream scenario for those Virginia Tech club guys. This is not an event you want to find yourself stranded out on an island in. So to have, so we will get, looks like Gerlich kind of step off there. So coming back from that steeple, maybe a little bit of pacing duty, although he will continue to run. So not sure if he just hit the wall or if that was by design.
As we mentioned early in the season, obviously you don't want to get hurt, especially a double like that can be tough, but lots of different athletes for a 10K too. When you see that double back, you have to think so many different pacing duties in a 10K because it's such a long race. And as we've said, keeping that pace can be difficult.
Yeah, it looks like Gerlich stepping back to help out another teammate. Excuse me, not a teammate. It's maybe just a second effort there from Gerlich. Again, you know, kind of just having fun out there now after already having the steeple under his belt. It's Hayden Hunt in that 7th spot out of Shippensburg. Then a battle between 8 and 9. 9 is Creamer from Lynchburg. Still a pack of Hokies out in the front. It's shrunk a little bit, just a main group of 5 now. Everybody looks calm, collected, and confident. Still very early in this race, just 7 minutes in.
See Creamer still on your screen, and essentially that's a tactic you really have to follow in a 10K. Just try to latch on to someone, let them do the hard work. Again, not necessarily sure on what the end will look like for Creamer. We don't know if he's going to finish this race or if this is more of just a tempo effort.
Take a look there in the infield. Jake Reed, head distance coach at Lynchburg, and son Carvin points to the video board. Says, "Hey, that's us, Dad." Assistant coach Brennan Straight's there hanging out as well.
Coach Reed, just phenomenal job here at Lynchburg, but also works with a high school group, the Pacers, based down here in Lynchburg, taking some homeschooled students out to run, and just being able to coach 2 teams at the level at which they compete, something that's very impressive to do. Very busy man, busy schedule, but Jake Reed finds a way to get things done.
You talk about competing at a high level. One of those high school Pacers athletes, Allie Zeeland, going on to compete at the highest level when it comes to youth cross country, heading over to Australia, I believe it was, to compete in the U20 national championships for cross country. Very, very big accomplishment for her to make that team represent the U.S.
Not everyone gets that opportunity in high school, so just to be able to take advantage of that chance, that's something that's pretty special. We know success, not a foreign aspect of either of Reed's programs.
So there is mile number 2, right around 10:20, maybe even a hair under for our leaders. Again, pack of about 5, but it's going to mix up a little bit now. Another Hokie steps off. So now 4 left in this top group, 3 of them Virginia Tech Club athletes, and then a pair of Shippensburg athletes rounding out our top 6. Now, take a look there, a little further back in the race. That's Aaron Scott from right down the road at Randolph. And look at Gerlich still finding teammates to help out. At some points almost just hanging out on the track or walking, and then he just finds another Hokie jersey. Says, "Hey, come on, man, let's do this."
Touched on it. That's just being the ultimate teammate, helping out people around the track. We know it's not an easy task to be able to have stop and go, as that front group of Hokies about to overtake them. You wonder if Gerlich actually joins them. It looks like he will. As we've touched on, lots of movement in a race like this. See lots of different looks throughout, and I think as an athlete, you just have to stay engaged with your splits and where you're at.
Yeah, Gerlich just bouncing all around the field, just urging on his teammates. He might start to get a little bit of separation between our top two here. Really our leader. I do believe Gerlich, through the off and on pacing duties, is a lap behind. Not sure he's very concerned about that. Just trying to lend a helping hand and get in another quality effort coming back from that steeplechase.
So you just saw on your screen, I believe that was Weichert from the 10K. Impressive effort. We saw a few PRs. Great way to start off Jack M. Tom's Invitational here at Lynchburg.
See Hayden Hunt start to make up a little bit of ground here, try to regain this top group of guys. A few times we've seen a couple of these athletes try and break away from the group. Nobody's really been able to throw down that final hammer just yet. But again, this early in the race, there's not necessarily a need to. You come through that second mile, it's an even split, direct, replica of what you did the first mile. You're running the pace you're setting out to run. Why not everybody work together still as long as possible? Maybe once you get to that, past that 5K mark, you get over halfway through the race. That's a different story. But you're still in the front half of a 25-lap race. It's like we've touched on in several of these races. Nobody's throwing a kill shot with 14 laps left on the counter. So, be interesting to see what these Hokies do. Still 3 of them at 1 through 3.
And I think in an ideal situation, you do work together as long as the race allows. But you wonder if it's a coaching decision as well to start getting out.
So that's 3 miles. They clipped down a little bit there, coming through in just over 15:20. So again, slightly faster, just a couple of seconds, but staying right on that pace. The race is heating up down on the track a little bit. We're going to step aside for just a few moments. Quick little commercial break, and then we will bring you right back here for the conclusion of the men's 10K, wrapping things up on the track in day 1 of the Jack M. Tom's Invitational.
rough day. Jess and I are officially on a break. The couple canoe has broken up.
It's not.
How you feeling?
Living the dream.
Just canoeing. That's the Mexican side behind me. The U.S. is that way.
So far, we're all still alive.
I really want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Woo! We did it! Kind of.
And we are back. As we mentioned, conclusion of the 10K on tap. As we mentioned, going into the break, things heating up a little bit down on the track, strung out just a little bit, but everybody here in this first group of five, very much in range. It is Naseh and Thomas, both of Virginia Tech, in the lead. Hayden Hunt, he's hung around there for Shippensburg. He is in third, just not going away.
As we've seen in a few races too, you linger around long enough, maybe make things happen, and even if you don't get the win, still put yourself in a great position to have a good time. And we know early in the season, maybe placement isn't as important as just hitting those marks, being able to get times, build confidence, but still lots of racing left as we conclude this opening night.
So next lap will be the 4-mile mark for our leaders. Naseh running with a lot of confidence right now. Be interesting to see what he's at this 4-mile mark, because really looks like he is cut down a little bit. He's getting those wheels turning. Here now, about 2/3 through this race at the line.
Both Tech runners in the lead, as you said, Naseh and Thomas. Relatively quick cadence, and especially in a 10K, just being able to have that turnover, that's something that's really going to help along the line. But they and Hunt, really, that entire first group haven't looked too different as this race has entered the fourth.
See there, Ronan Creamer maybe waving at himself, maybe a friend passing by outside of the track, not sure. But good to see him having some fun, coming off of that minor injury and kicking off his season with this 10K. Still looking pretty good there. But as for our leaders, it was 20:27 for Naseh at the 4-mile mark. That is right about 5:07 pace. And he just keeps rattling off these almost identical miles. I mean, this is really impressive to keep every single mile really within about 2 or 3 seconds.
And folks, it is much easier said than done to rattle them off. Knowing a 10K, and not even just how you feel, but the circumstances you're given. Obviously, that first mile, there's going to be a little bit more congestion at the start, but in the case of a leader, you have to start lapping people, going into that outside lane a few times, as we see Naseh as he passes. You really just have to stay aware, but that front group continuing to stay competitive.
So the pace there for Naseh, 31:43 at that 4-mile split. And the way he's running this thing and the way, I mean, you just look at his face, especially when he comes through on this home stretch, just looks really relaxed. That's how you want to look. And on the mental side of things, when you come through the line and you see, there's no longer double digits on that counter, it's just something that, kind of switches in your brain. It's like, you know what? No, I got this. I got a handle on this. You start to turn off how you feel, and you realize, I can do this. I can hold this together for 9 more laps. Now, keep in mind, 9 laps, still a very long time. That's over 2 miles. But in the context of this longer 10K race, You kind of go into a different headspace here down the stretch.
And it becomes a little bit more measurable, too, because, as you said, single digits, even going back to, talked about the 3K and indoor, that's really just an event that draws a little bit more of a comparison. So you know your body is capable of it. It's just being able to keep that pace. But as Nasei continues to roll, really just not faltering so far. Looks like Hunt is in second now. Keep an eye on that.
Interesting to see now Creamer just kind of latches on to Hunt. Again, that was Hunt lapping Creamer, but again, Creamer, I think, keeping this a little bit more to a tempo, workout-ish type effort, just get the wheels turning. You know, very, very good start to his sophomore campaign through the indoor season, especially early on. Big PR in the 5K, going 15-15, so he'll be capable of certainly running in the range of 31:30, if not faster, one would imagine, come this outdoor season.
Well, Lynchburg, certainly a program that has found success in developing athletes, and we just see the jump that Kramer has had, obviously, as a freshman, being able to go sub-16 in the 5K, but turning it around and finding his role. We know that he can go true distance events like this one being the 10K, so exciting to watch, really, from runners of all schools as we begin to open up these outdoor events.
Nasei's stride, almost trying to match the beat of the song currently playing right now as he continues to turn this thing over. 2 miles to go. Or excuse me, 7 laps to go for Nasei. 24:32 on the clock. Correction to that, 6 laps remaining for Nasei. Getting a lap counter in this stage of the race. Very spread out field down there, so everybody in a slightly different spot.
Always a little difficult for the officials, just keeping everyone accounted for, and we know in indoor it becomes even more difficult, just having fields that are extremely tight, but then you have a few people on different laps, so you just have to watch. But crew doing a phenomenal job so far.
So when Nasei hits the line here, this will be the 5-mile mark. Hayden Hunt still giving chase. Continuing to maintain not a very big gap that Nasei has. Going to try to make a race out of this over the last mile and change. Again, 5 laps to go for those two, and the time was 25:32 at the line for Nasei. Again, that's roughly 5:06 pace, so cutting down a little bit from where he was at on that last mile.
As we've touched on, long event, really just got to find people and keep going. But once you start cutting down a little bit, you know you have the last mile, and your confidence really starts to kick in, just knowing what you've accomplished so far in the race. But as we said, even a mile, still lots to go.
Pace at that 5-mile mark, 31:39 now for Nasei, who just continues to turn his legs over. Hunt doing the same. Both of those gentlemen look very, very good this late in the race.
All about consistency, just lap after lap. Be interesting, too, to see if this ends up getting a little tighter going into that final lap. We know after running 24 laps to have a kick on the last one is no easy task.
3 to go for Nasei when he gets to the line. Same for our second place runner in Hayden Hunt. Finish line is in sight.
Mentioned it earlier, it was a really big pickup almost halfway through that race for Hunt, and ever since he has not looked back. Be curious to see if that gap gets a little bit shorter.
Yeah, we will certainly monitor that down the stretch here. Again, less than 3 laps to go now. When they hit the 200-meter mark, just a K remaining in the race. Hunt continuing to close. Nasei still looking good, but again, that lead shrinking by the lap. You know, Nasei's got quite a few teammates here. Sure, they will be cheering him on down the stretch, but both of these two athletes going to get a good dose of competition and some early season action here.
And the question for Nasei, trying to fend off Hunt here, is how quickly do you begin to pick up? Because obviously he can't really see where Hunt is going to go, so if Hunt picks it up, he has to be ready for that move. But with 800 to go, start feeling a little bit that you can take the last 2 laps. It'll be interesting to watch.
And there they are, 1 and 2. Nasei, the black and white singlet, the navy blue Shippensburg singlet in second there for Hayden Hunt. Less than 800 meters to go, and now Hunt really starting to make a dent in this gap.
You have to think he knows that he is certainly still in this race.
So now the question is, does Hunt make the pass now? Does he hang on right behind him? We're probably going to see the answer to that question here in just a second. Or do we get a quick response here from Nasei? Don't want to go too early. Both of these guys, you can imagine how tired their legs are.
Also see if coaches try to get involved. We see both of them here on the home stretch, but it's going to be a fun last lap to round out the first day.
It's going to be a little bit of lap traffic that they're going to navigate over the final 400 meters. Hunt still sitting there right behind him. His teammates getting fired up. Let's see what he does at the 400 mark. Can't really pass right now, so he'll have to be content to hang behind. Nasei continuing to hold the lead, but Hunt has put himself right back in the race.
And obviously don't want to pass on the turn, but you really have to be urgent now as they hit the straight.
31 minutes on the clock. A big pass there from Hayden Hunt. He turns on the burners.
How about
200
that?
meters to go for Hunt. How about that kick? Talk about commitment.
How long has he saved that one for is going to be a question to answer.
Not sure if that indicates there's more left in the tank or just his competitive spirit, but what a kick from Hayden Hunt. He puts in the move with just over 200 meters to go, and he is going to ride this one out to the finish in just over 31:40. The final time, 31:42. Hayden Hunt sticks around the whole way and closes it up in the final lap to take the win on night 1 of this Jack M. Toms Invitational.
That was a phenomenal effort on that backstretch, and you had to think he knew what he had because pointed to the side a little bit and said, this race is mine.
This race turning into a really solid early season field. And the 10K, we'll get our third place finisher, Alec Venable. He comes through in 32:05. And Nate Harding, 32:14. Austin Molitor, 32:15. There's Wyatt Thomas, 32:17. So whole barrage of athletes getting well under the 32:30 mark, kicking off their season the right way.
And Sam, what impresses me in a 10K especially a race where maybe you settle in. A lot of times you become content with the pace, but then you forget to compete. And Hayden Hunt came out and really that entire race just closing the gap. That was a competitor out there, and he made sure that it paid dividends when he crossed the finish line.
We've still got a few runners on the track, including Lynchburg's own Ronan Creamer. Shot of a pair of our remaining athletes there on the back stretch. But again, reflecting back on this race, this day at large, plenty of PRs. The track heating up here. Again, night one. We got a even bigger day ahead tomorrow. Let's see Ronan Creamer come in to the line. It's going to be a little under 34. 33:48 will be the time for him. So he will finish and complete his first official 10K.
You wonder what the strategy was on that one. Obviously, we touched on it being a little bit of a tempo effort, but you know, when you're out there left alone, you really have to learn to fight. One of the beautiful things about a 10K, just it gets so spread out that you see every single runner just having to dip into their own style and own game plan. But to show heart at this point in the season, late March, it's going to be exciting as these next few months of the outdoor season unfold.
Jake Parkhurst, the next finisher after Creamer. He comes through 34:12. We're going to get another pair coming through here, entering their final lap. How about that? Very exciting finish to our final event of day one. It's Nase. Just about takes it wire to wire, but it comes down to that final 400. Hayden Hunt just never goes away. Steals the show. Just over 200 meters remaining.
And that tech crew, we know in the beginning of that race, there was about 6 or 7 runners in it. I venture to think they did their pacing perfectly. You wonder how much of it Nase was allowed to just go for it, but as you said, Hayden Hunt getting it done in the end.
Yeah, and I mean, can't say enough. How about the performance from the Shippensburg crew as they take both the men's and women's 10K crowns? Attention will certainly remain on Shippensburg throughout the day tomorrow. A big one to keep your eye out for. Ian Sherlock, he'll be in the men's 1500 that we touched on a little bit earlier. Very fast field there. He certainly adds to that. And that will conclude our men's 10K, and with it, night one of 2 in this year's annual Jack M. Toms Invitational. So once again, Evan, you'll be back here ready to do it again tomorrow, in for the long haul. Pretty much dawn to dusk, as they say, but it's been a pleasure doing it with you tonight, as always.
Absolutely. We saw some really nice performances for this early in the season, and as we move forward, lots of events tomorrow, lots of marks to try and go get, but it'll be exciting as Lynchburg opens their outdoor season at home. For a lot of them, their first races, and we're just going to go have a lot of fun from track and field sides. As we said, we've been a little spoiled with this one in the 10K. It was a fun one with Hayden Hunt getting it done.
Yeah, Bell Weichert and Hayden Hunt steal the show on night one for Shippensburg. Make sure you come back right here tomorrow. Tune in to LHSN for day 2 of the Jack M. Toms Invitational.